And we are joined by, again, after last week's incredible visit, Richard Belzer with David Wayne, afterward by Jesse Ventura, Dead Wrong, Straight Facts on the country's most controversial cover-ups. And I just want to thank you for the great interview last week. I didn't even introduce you properly, but everybody knows who you are, TV show host and, I mean, you know, star of television, film, you name it, now an author. But to have Christopher Walken pop in, that was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it was funny because you were trying to ask him about his worldview. And he's one of the few, he's the only person I know on the planet who's really off the grid. You know, people say they're off the grid. He's not on a Google map. I hope that doesn't make them look for him, but no, he's maybe the coolest guy I know, and I know a lot of cool people, including you. Alex, by the way, thank you. After I did your show last week, my book just took off, and I'm so grateful because I feel a civic responsibility on this book, not just, you know, that it's a book, but I would imagine
the fact that you did a bunch of other interviews in CNN helped it as well, but we do have an audience that's hungry for this type of info, and they did snap up all our copies in a matter of hours.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, Alex. We got to continue this fight. You know, talking about what happened in New York, I love your analogy of these people should be they should be mentally evaluated for getting in the way of the bullets.
Yes,
our government is capable of cooking up something like that. I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's called Propaganda by Edward Bernays.
Yes, yes, I did read that. I made a film about it.
Oh, great. I'll have to find that, because exactly what you're talking about is the government's utter contempt for the people, and they're so out in the open now about what their intentions are that it's really stunning, because in the past, all this was done behind closed doors and literally in darkened rooms with 5 guys and cigars. That was a cliche for a reason. But now they're just like in our face, and it's pretty chilling. It's like they're just taking the gloves off and almost daring us to be real Americans.
Yes, I mean, now the choice is very, very clear. Yeah, we're spying on you without warrants. Yeah, we torture people's kids in front of them. Yeah, we tortured people that are patsies that we're having a military trial for, and even if the trial doesn't find them guilty, the president can keep them in jail. I mean, it's just kangaroo world, kangaroo court in our face. Why do you think the ruling class is acting like this? I mean, will they start, you know, fiddling while Rome burns? What's coming next?
Well, that's a good question. I think that we all make a mistake, myself included, in thinking that there's a big grand plan. I think they've already won, Alex. I mean, for 100 years, they lied us into World War I. They've lied us into every war. World War II, everyone, I think, can agree that was necessary. I mean, it's almost a cliche to say that was, there's no such thing as a good war, but that was a necessary reaction to us being attacked and the Nazis, and that we can all understand. But every other war, we were lied to. And I think the American people are finally, thanks to people like you, are finally saying, you know what, this has got to stop. And I think the so-called elites are really circling the wagons. They've tipped their hand. Brzezinski did this speech a while ago saying, oh, you know, the jig is up. They know what's going on. And, you know, the Pentagon Papers were a good start, but the guys who revealed the Pentagon Papers were also part of the war machine. We forget that, you know, who finally got a conscience. And I think today a lot of people in the military and in the government want to go to their graves with a clear conscience. And I can't name names, Alex, but a friend of mine has been in Washington recently talking to some old school lobbyists who really want to, you know, as I say, go to the grave with a clear conscience, because they've been representing some pretty dark forces.
No, I had dinner with a rocket scientist, a pretty famous one. I didn't realize who it was at the time, and he was a former head of a big technology company. I'll just leave it at that. And I mean, all these guys are really waking up now, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. They're worried about whistleblowers. That's why they're throwing the book. You know, previously the laws were clear. If there's a crime, if the higher-ups aren't doing something about it, you've got a right to go public. But when they're putting Bradley Manning in there, she was saying he leaked all this when obviously he didn't leak it all. We're talking about torture of children here. You have a responsibility to release that. That's not national security. Now Assange, the Brits are threatening to raid the embassy he's in, violating all. I mean, they are scared of their own people. not going along with this. That's why they're so scared of the veterans right now.
Well, yeah, the demonization of the veterans is that I'm working with the VA now with a couple of organizations. Actually, Law and Order, my show, we're going to do an episode about PTSD and what amount of paperwork these kids have to go through when they come back after they're wounded, how we forget about them and how we demonize them. And, you know, the Sikh shooting was a good example of saying, oh, he's a vet and maybe he has PTSD. Well, Alex, PTSD is not a violent disease. I am sick of demonizing all vets when one or two out of a population, like you said before, what are there, 330 million Americans? You know, one guy shoots someone.
There's more than 30 million vets right now.
Yeah, and, you know, one commits suicide every day. So
if a cop ever shoots some people, which cops have done, do we just say all cops have their guns taken? Or if a fireman does it? Or if an auto mechanic does it? Or a school teacher? You know, if one school teacher molests kids, do all school teachers go to jail?
Yeah, you know what, I think, tell me what you think about this idea, Alex. I'm working now with some gun organizations, and I'm the guy who works with them who says, look, we can't take away everybody's gun. That's crazy. It's physically impossible. It's against the law. Everyone has the right. But here's my idea, and tell me what you think, Alex. I believe anyone who wants to own a weapon for a legitimate reason, it's fine. You know, protect your home, to hunt. But, you know, clip capacity is certainly arguable. I don't think anyone needs a 60-round clip. But I do believe that people who buy a gun, you know, it's not in the Constitution. When you buy a car, you have to register the car, you have to learn how to drive the car, you have to get a license, and you have to insure it. And that's not in the Constitution, but we all do it. I believe a handgun or hunting weapon, when you buy it, you should register it, you should learn how to use it, and you should take out insurance and just show that you can use it. I mean, like a car, you can do vehicular homicide. It's a weapon.
Well, we're going to break. When we come back, I'll give you my take on this. But I understand from a nice person's position, you think of people not knowing how to use guns. Here's the problem. There's always going to be crazies, always people that don't know how to use them. The system will use any bureaucracy like that, like they did in New York, to finally make it impossible. Sounds reasonable up front, but then they walk you into it to where now you can't have the gun and then only the criminals have it. But I do say this, anybody out there buying guns, they should go out and get training with it so they know how to use it. And people should, if they've got children, lock their guns up. Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. We've got the Life Straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Scalzo. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyAlexJonesChannel, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com. Richard Belzer plays the detective John Munch on Law & Order, Special Victims Unit, and first portrayed him on NBC's critically acclaimed drama series Homicide, Live on the Street. And, of course, he's been all over movies, TV, HBO. I mean, I can't even have time to get into it all. Everybody knows Richard Belzer. And I want to get into his book because we were just talking about JFK, RFK, Marilyn Monroe, a little bit about Martin Luther King, where they all had patsies, folks, or claim people died, you know, of an overdose when they killed them. But the book gets into so many other things. I mean, that's why I like this kind of book, is because it's just little factoids and giblets and just data. I mean, it's more almost like a court case or something, just putting the shadow state on trial. And I don't want to get off into gun debates with people. I know there are well-meaning folks.
We're not debating, Alex.
No, but I'm saying,
on the same page.
I'm saying I respect your view. I mean, I respect what you're saying, and I understand it. There's going to be excesses and bad things with freedom. But as Thomas Jefferson said, we're not going to be transported to total liberty on a bed of feathers here.
Exactly.
There's going to be bad things on both sides. I just want freedom. I don't trust the government, so I just say Wild Wild West. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm here. But I think we're on the same page. And you were talking about my book. It was interesting the other night on CNN. We started talking about, the interview started off really great. And then, you know, somebody, I guess, with his earpiece said, ask him about the moon. You know, they wanted to goad me into being defensive or saying I didn't believe we landed on the moon. You know what I mean? That's what they do to us. They try to marginalize us by leaking in these, you know, the crazier stuff. So I busted Piers Morgan. I said, I'm disappointed that you asked me that question. I didn't take the bait, and made him back off a little bit. And then he changed the subject. And then, you know, when I tried to comment during the later segment, first of all, it was interesting, Alex. They asked me who I wanted to debate. And I said, I don't want to debate anyone. Let Piers interview me for 30 minutes. They said, no, he'll interview you for 15, but we want to have you debate someone. I said, I'll have a discussion. So they said, and I knew they wanted to have someone who they consider opposite of me, but I'm very unpredictable politically. So I said, my friend P.J. O'Rourke, who's the smartest, one of the smartest, funniest conservatives I know, is an old friend, and we never get shrill. We disagree, but we're buddies. So he was on, and they kind of wouldn't let me in on that part of it. And a lot of people, I didn't realize at the time, said I was censored. And when I look at it now, I believe there was something going on. And as you know, Alex, the Psy warriors from Fort Detrick used to go, and probably still do, go to CNN and write the news. You know,
yeah, that came out in the Washington Post 12 years ago, and it's still going on. CNN, as you mentioned in the last interview, people can go to YouTube and watch it. They always try to pull it down, but people put it right back up. Right. Doing fake nerve gas attacks on Israel, and they're at CNN Center in Atlanta with fake palm trees and fake wind machines, and in between the ads, the international satellite feed was able to record it. I mean, this is a joke.
Dan Rather has done that, and Cokie Roberts was busted for standing in front of a green screen pretending she was somewhere else. Dan Rather has done that more than once. And do you remember when they were practicing a story before the event happened? I believe it was Rather or someone was talking about it, an incident,
yes,
international incident, and it was a rehearsal. So I mean, who are they kidding? It's like it's right there.
Well, that's like Lee Harvey Oswald in some of the Eastern papers. What was it, New Zealand and Thailand and some others?
Yeah. That stuff 10 minutes, which was really, really creepy. Fletcher Prouty was in New Zealand. He picked up a newspaper and saw all this stuff about Oswald and went, excuse me? But, you know, we prove in our book, we're the first authors, I'm proud to say, that prove irrevocably that Oswald was part of a fake defector program where they sent 18 or 19 people that they recruited from the Marines to pretend they were defecting and go to Russia, you know, to spy. But the Russians were hip enough. I think they knew every single one of them. And like, they let Oswald in. They knew who he was. They gave him a job at a radio station, a radio factory, a cool corner apartment. He marries the daughter of a KGB. He gets out of there real easy. But we proved that he was a part of the fake defector program. So
I tell you what, long segment coming up. Let's come back and let's run through your favorite parts of the book that really reveal what's going on, because again, folks, it is a page turner. You need to get it. It's available at infowars.com. The truck from Minnesota where they were printed is almost here, but you can find it in bookstores everywhere. Dead Wrong, available at infowarshop.com. Richard Belzer, TV and movie star.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Wow, we got Richard Belzer on the show, author of Dead Wrong, available in bookstores everywhere. And I was reading that it's selling out in many places, sold out in our office. But the book is available. I guess it's going to get here Monday, so you can order now at infowarshop.com. We support Richard, the First Amendment, and us. But that's not what this is about. Richard, I'm not just, you're sitting here kissing your hind end or anything, but I respect people who are in Hollywood who come out and, say on CNN, both parties are controlled. They're both driving us off the cliff. We're in trouble. The government killed JFK, things like that. because it does take a lot of courage. I mean, I know you know probably a lot more people than I do in Hollywood and media, but most of them are, quite frankly, wise of what's going on. They're very informed. What you call conspiracies, hotter than a pistol in Los Angeles, and it has been for decades. But these people have been slapped down when they go public with controversial things, and I think people like you are hitting the barbed wire. And so that's why none of us agree with each other on everything, but I just respect the guts. It's like that line from Full Metal Jacket, Private Joker's silly and ignorant, but he's got guts, and guts is enough. I'm silly on a lot of fronts to other people's perspectives, but the point is we all agree that we've got shadowy corporate interests that can do whatever they want, that are monopolistic, shutting down our society. And we've got to get the left, right, center, like you said, outside that paradigm together to say, we got a problem.
Exactly. It's a oligarchy, literally. This country, it used to be a cliche. I was laughed out of the room. I've been railing about this stuff since the 60s, and I've been marginalized. I've lost jobs. Certain radio stations wouldn't have me on. And this is in the 80s, and the 70s. And now it's like, okay, I asked a Secret Service friend of mine, should I be worried? He said, no, you're a celebrity. They won't kill you. But, what he meant was they do kill people, but they won't kill you. It's like, whoa. It's like, so I feel, as I keep saying, a civic responsibility to get this stuff out, because as you know from the sales from your website, people want this information. Americans are intuitively very sharp. They're isolationists. They don't want to be in wars. They want to have, their privacy protected. I mean, we're all on the same page. We all want clean air and health care. Just quickly, I live in France part of the year. Actually, I'm there now. It's one of my dogs squeaking. Honey?
That's okay, bro. I got 4 dogs. That makes me think I'm at home. My wife calls them mice, even though one of them is a black lab. She says, we're infested with mice.
Yes. So we had 10 dogs at one time. That's another show. But just quickly about healthcare in America, whoever gives it, or whoever the source is, it's exorbitant. It's crazy. I broke a tooth here in this little village, a remote village, not a tourist place. I went to the dentist. He was fantastic. He gave me a root canal, a temporary cap, shots, x-rays, 132 euros, man. In America, it would be like $3,000. I mean, anyway. Let's get back to my book, because you mentioned that we talked about the big cases, Dr. King. I don't know if I mentioned on your show, but a civil jury in 1999 in Tennessee found that the government was involved in a conspiracy to murder Dr. King.
Oh, yeah, we've had the lawyer on who proved all that. I mean, it's a fact that James Earl Ray was set up.
Yeah, and it's not generally known. And when I tell people that, they think I'm crazy. But now, it's there. It's out there. That's why I keep saying I'm proud of this book. It's in the history section. But what's really wild is the Vince Foster case, which we didn't talk about last time, I don't think. There are literally so many dramatic inconsistencies in the crime scene. Evidence, of Foster's death is even hard to prioritize them. Let me just give you a few highlights. The gun found in his hand was not responsible for his wounds. We have a picture in our book of him him on the ground with a gun in his hand. There's a shot, color photo. He's holding a .32 black gun, which, as we all know, is the drop gun that cops and killers use, made of parts of other guns. That was in his right hand, but they said he was killed by a silver antique pistol. And we have a photo of the weapon. The gun had fingerprints on it, but they weren't Vince Foster's. The gun was the type used by professional killers, as I said, not traceable, pieced together from parts of different guns. His GSR markings, the gunpowder burns, were defensive, like he was protecting himself, the poor guy. It's like,
well, they shot him in his office. They came and carpet cleaned it and scrubbed it, didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, but he had carpet fibers on him. He had, pardon, not to be disrespectful, but a giant amount of semen in his underwear, which shows that he had sex right before he was murdered. And a lot of people, when you die, you do release a little sperm, but this was really a considerable amount. So there was sex involved. He was not acting in a depressed or suicidal way. His car wasn't there when they found his body. Then it showed up. I mean, his body was clearly moved, and there were blonde hairs on his clothes. I mean,
and they covered that all up. Yeah, the word is he and Hillary had a little falling out, and you don't do that with Miss Hillary.
I don't want to start naming, that gets into a whole other thing. But he was scheduled to have a private meeting the next day where he was going to resign. And, similarly, Dr. David Kelly, UN weapons inspector prior to the Iraq War. He
said they're going to kill me and I'll be found in the woods. And people saw guys in black uniforms run away from his body. What about Ron Brown, the Treasury, the Commerce Secretary?
Well,
I'm distracting you. Go back to Kelly.
Yeah, that's a great case. But no, Kelly, you're right. Kelly said to several people, because he knew that Blair was lying about Iraq, as was Bush and that gang. He knew Blair was lying. He knew all the facts. He said that he said to several people, if we go to war in Iraq, you'll find me dead in the woods, probably. And they found him dead in the woods. His body was moved. He had to, he was cut. When you shake someone's hand, Alex, that's how they kill people. It's one of the things in the CIA manual that we call C now, where you reach to shake the hand, but the person has a very sharp something in their hand, and they cut you towards them, and that's the kind of wound he had. And anyway, it's like, these bodies are dropping all over the place. Frank Olson, who was head of CIA Special Operations Division, and became increasingly uncomfortable with two things: the use of anthrax as a weapon on the civilians in North Korea, and brutal and often fatal interrogation techniques being worked on by the agency. So he tried to resign, was not allowed to. He was taken to a Manhattan hotel for therapy by a CIA psychiatrist when crashing through the 13th-story window of a room in Manhattan's Hotel Statler. It's now the Hotel Pennsylvania. I've been there, by the way. It was immediately ruled suicide, and the autopsy supported it. A second autopsy demanded by the family, revealed that he had been knocked unconscious by a severe blunt force trauma to the back of his head prior to the fall. The Blue Ribbon panel also determined that the first autopsy was manipulated to appear as a suicide, and that numerous points and very substantial evidence clearly indicated that Olson was actually murdered. Now, here's another chilling fact, Alex. The two people in the Ford administration, this case dragged on. He was murdered in the 50s. His family finally got the exhumation in the 70s. So Ford was president, and they wanted to shut this family up. They wanted to pay them off. So who was in charge of buying them out and silencing them? And they weren't totally successful. They wound up finally giving them $750,000. Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were in charge of trying to stifle Olson's family. So these guys go way back. These are, they can't go to The Hague. These are war criminals. These are murderers. Now, Fred Hampton, who was just an incredible civil rights organizer, who was nonviolent, who was educating and feeding poor people. He was an alderman. I mean, this guy was serious. He was really an unsung hero of the civil rights movement. He died in a massive police attack at 4:45 a.m. And we determined that through forensic evidence, which is what I love about my partner, David Wayne. He's just microanalysis of all these events. And no one's been able to shoot any holes. I've been doing a lot of interviews, Alex, and a lot of them were motivated by me being on your show. And again, thank you. And no one can punch any holes on what we're saying, which is comforting for me, because I know you get worked up because you have facts, and I love your passion. But getting back to Fred Hampton, Hampton was completely unconscious during the entire police raid. He had been drugged by an informant, and the levels were so high that it was not possible that he fired back at the police, as they alleged. It was a lie that, as police testified, over 200 shots were fired in a two-sided gun battle that lasted approximately 10 to 12 minutes. In reality, only one shot had been fired from inside the apartment near the front door, not from Fred Hampton. So his girlfriend is in bed with him with their baby, Alex. And forensic evidence verifies the eyewitness testimony that Hampton's body was dragged from his bed into the hallway and, still alive, was then executed with 2 shots to the head at point-blank range.
Exactly, and your book is just full of countless examples of this, letting you know you cannot believe an official story by a shadow government that brings in the narcotics, that runs the child kidnapping. It's unlimitedly evil what's going on. Look at Gary Webb, has a new book coming out, Pulitzer Prize winner. I'm talking to him. He can't wait to get this out, proving CIA drug dealing was continuing. He'd had to move. Men would break in his house that would come sliding down the drain, special forces style. They go in his house, have him write the suicide note, and then shoot him twice in the head. And then friends of his, who weren't really friends, come out and say, oh, it's quite normal to shoot yourself twice in the head. I mean, I want it on record, and I bet you want to get it on record. Yeah, they don't like going after people that are very prominent because they've been caught in that. But sometimes they do. I mean, Gary Webb was pretty darn prominent, and it's always the same. They throw you off a building. They inject you with drugs. They've got heart attack medications, or they shoot you in the head. Go ahead. Like
Danny Casolaro.
Exactly.
You know, he was really an amazing researcher, and, you know, they just murdered him. You talk about suicide, you know, things being considered suicide or ruled suicide. You're in Texas, so you know, you guys in Texas know a lot about Lyndon Johnson before the rest of the world. But in our research, we found that 2 Texans who got in the way of Lyndon Johnson's path to the White House paid with their lives. And John Stockwell, the former CIA officer, said Lyndon Johnson was corrupt to the core. Contrary to the recent sanitized versions by historians, Lyndon Johnson was one of the most ruthless politicians in history and directly connected to these and other murders performed by Mac Wallace, LBJ's personal henchman assassin. Henry Wallace was shot 5 times, Alex, with a bolt-action rifle, and they still got a suicide ruling. Even J. Edgar Hoover, when he was taking off his dress or putting it on, said, you know, he wondered how someone could shoot themselves 5 times with a bolt action. It's like, and Kutelik was the accountant for the financial scam being run by Billy Saw Estes and linked to Lyndon Johnson. Estes later testified that Johnson personally ordered that Kutelik be killed using hitman Mac Wallace. So Henry Marshall and Kutelik were in the government, found out that Billy Saw Estes had empty silos, was claiming that he was getting all these wheat or corn or whatever subsidies, you know, bilking the government for millions and millions of dollars to his buddy Lyndon Johnson. They were going to blow the whistle, and they were murdered by this.
Oh, yeah. I had family down here, but also in Dallas that knew the people in and around the Johnsons. And it was just well known. They would just kill people in local Austin business if they didn't like just somebody competing with them. They would have the hitman drop by and kill them. And I actually, I'm not going to get into it. I just had some family that actually went to school previously with one of LBJ's hitmen. It's an amazing story. But the point is that, yes, he was completely power mad and insane. Now, by the end of it, he was really bummed out. I actually know some of his family. I'm just going to leave it at that. And, sure. And just a few weeks before he died, the last time they saw him, he came by and saw him and basically said, I've been horrible. It's been terrible. You know, this has been wrong. And so it is true that at the end, when he grew his hair out and everything, I guess he wanted all that power. He was hyper dominant. But once he got all the power, he realized it was nothing.
Who are you talking about?
LBJ.
Yeah, LBJ, someone said that he committed suicide, and by that they meant his doctor said, if you smoke, you're going to die. And he continued smoking. I think he was a broken man, you know, lying about Vietnam and having people whacked and not being loved by the people. I mean, he resigned. You know how that is for a guy with that gigantic ego the size of the sun to have to resign? I mean, that killed him. And I think from then on, he smoked, and he was they called him the nickname, as you know, I'm sure, Landslide Lyndon, which was a joke because he won an election by 28 votes. Stuffing
the ballot box, box 13. Now expanding on this, because people are going to kill me if I don't bring it up, there's a lot more in the book. It is an amazing book. We'll talk about it in the final segment. But people are begging me on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. It's pouring in. They want to talk about how in the world you came on the show and had Christopher Walken then sit in your lap. I know your wife's there with you and the dogs, and of course, Mr. Walken's happily married. It's now turned into a whole conspiracy theory of why he came and sat on your lap. I guess that was because that was the only chair, and you guys were doing comedic jokes there, but now it's turned into a conspiracy theory.
We're gay. Chris and I, we're gay. We're totally gay. No, you know, it's like we're lovers. We're monogamous. You know, we've been together since I don't know. We've been together a long time. We're both married, but you know, it's like you can you have a platonic friendship with a man. You know, Chris and I love each other. We're brothers. You know, and you know, he, like you said, I was sitting on the edge of the couch, and he just came. And, you know, if you know, when
no, it's a couch. There's not enough room. He kind of crammed him next to you, so he wasn't sitting in your lap. It just created that illusion. But I mean, here's the deal. Sometimes I'll catch myself with an old friend. You want to just put your arm around him, and it's 100% non-sexual. But nowadays, everybody's so politically correct. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, I've got my arm around my buddy. He's going to think I'm, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm a very tactile person. All my male friends, you know, they know I'm going to hug them. You know, and plus, I have a gorgeous wife who I dream about. So, I mean, but, you know, some interviewers have said to me over the years, I heard you're gay. And I said, yes, just to be provocative. I mean, so what?
No, exactly. People made jokes and say you work for the Vatican or you work for Israel. And I go, yes, it's all true.
We work for the government, and we're just, you know, we're false flag provocateurs. You know, the Jesuits were the greatest spies of all. They would join organizations, pretend they were in them, and then bring them down from within. The Jesuits were kind of a first kind of secret service.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. But in fact, I'm not bashing Catholics here, but it is true that the Nazis, at least in their organization, the SS was modeled off the Jesuits.
They were singing Christmas carols, you know, Nazis, while babies and people.
It's pretty amazing. Let's get back into the book. But I didn't even mean to get off into that little joke for 14-year-old kids that were watching the video going, look gay. Very, very funny. It's amazing. All right, we'll be right back with our guest, Richard Belzer. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about a year and a half ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfowarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals, but the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfowarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfowarsTeam.com. I mean, people are getting more excited about exposing tyranny, aren't they, Richard? We were just talking about that during the break.
Yeah, you know, people want the information, and because, you know, as Jefferson said, an informed citizenry is our best defense against tyranny. And that he meant tyranny of our own government. A true patriot protects his country against his government sometimes. And I think that's what we're doing. There are elements within the government. Like you were talking about whistleblowers earlier. Under Obama, they busted more whistleblowers than any other president. It's like, what? You know, they're still rendering people legally. You could still put a hood over an American and send them off somewhere, and God knows what they'll do. And that, you know, after this presidential election, a lot of things are obfuscated because of the shrill contentiousness of the election. But I think after this election, we can really focus on what the government has been doing and what they're really doing.
Well, that's right. If Romney gets in and thinks that he's going to just business as usual, he's got another thing coming. People turned on Obama very quickly. They're going to turn on him, and the ruling class has to know that. Their bull is not working anymore.
No, the ruling class is running scared, I think, for the first time, maybe, I don't know in how long. And it's because of information. And I love your term, infowars, because it is a war. And those who control the past control the present. Those who control the present control the future, as Orwell said. And by us revealing the true past, we are controlling the present, and therefore we can affect the future. That's why, you know, the children,
Stay there. Well, hold on. One more segment with Richard Belzer, one of many more visits. Next time he wants to come back, take an hour of calls. You know, it's good to see the excitement out there about freedom. Now, we're going to have a big story out on this soon, but we have confirmed now, going on behind the scenes, that in the county alone, where Brandon Robb, the honorably discharged Marine, got grabbed and they wanted to commit him, and the psychiatrist said, I'm going to brainwash you, trying to freak him out, that there were other people in there, including veterans, and they're doing a national sweep, grabbing even talk show host veterans. They're very scared of younger combat veterans between, say, 20 and 35 or so, or even older, but that seems to be who they're scooping up for nothing. I mean, the one talk show host that the Northeast Intelligence Group wrote about that we had on the show, and they've sent us the the documents and articles confirming it. He just said, man, the thing's collapsing. This country's going to hell in a handbasket, and I'm going to buy some guns to protect myself. They came and grabbed him and took his guns and put him in a mental institution until he got out, when he agreed to never have guns again. I mean, no judge, no jury. And I understand the fear of mentally ill people with guns. You're not going to stop a real shooter, folks, who's mad about their hot dog stand in New York. You know, but I don't want to get off into that. My question is, in history, Richard, I know you've studied it. And like you said, you were awake before I was awake. You've been talking about this for 30-something years. They always use psychiatry to go after people. What's your take on this frightening new trend?
Well, it's not a new trend. It's like, the Soviet Union would jail someone if they politically disagreed and send them to the, there's a great book called The Puzzle Palace. Well,
they're still doing it. Yeah, but I mean, new trend, and it's accelerating.
Now we're doing it. We've always been fascinated by mind control, and people think that's like science fiction. But our whole country is under mind control in terms of buying products, being lied into wars, and people don't like to believe that they can be controlled, because Americans are spirited and individualists. We're from all different parts of the earth, and we've got this great, unbelievable country, and we want our freedom, we want information, and we want to be protected, we want to protect our families. But now they're trying to demonize and make people who are super sane seem crazy. I mean, I don't ever want people to not be able to defend themselves, and just to hint at someone being crazy because they want to defend themselves out of a rational fear of the state. That's chilling stuff. That's Nazi Germany. That's the Soviet Union. And, our country now, I'm sad to say, by definition, by Mussolini's definition, we are a fascist state. And by that I mean it's a corporate state. It's a country that is for the corporation, not the individual. And that's
right. Individuals don't have rights. Now the corporations do, which wasn't even legal till about 160 years ago in this country. In closing, we got to have you back as soon as you want to come back to take calls, Richard. I'm sorry, we're almost out of time. Let me just ask you one more question about Walken. Is he really disconnected politically because he seems like he's so smart, or is he so private he refuses to get into controversy?
No, he really, I talk to him a lot. And I've learned over the years that he has a brilliant take on things. And I start railing, and he'll say, well, Richard, hasn't it always been that way? I mean, he's wise. He doesn't want to get caught up in the poison that's put out there. So
in the minutia, he's kind of flying above it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be on the grid. He doesn't read that many, newspapers and stuff. And, I'll tell him stuff, and he'll go, He's a wonderful individual who's a gift to us.
Well, I owe you for having him on the show, and I owe you for coming on the show. But if you've ever got those stars lined up again, or somebody else that'll pop in, we would love it. You're awesome. Everybody get the book today. Drive it up to #1. It's on Amazon.com, InfoWarsShop.com, everywhere. Dead wrong, straight facts on the country's most controversial cover-ups. And there's your wife, and there's the doggy. Hi, what a cute one. Put them full screen as we go out. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much. I had to bring Richard Belzer back on just in a short segment because he was bringing his wife and their dogs on air. So let's just briefly go back to him, because I didn't know this story that your dog vomited on Brzezinski's daughter, which is a big plus. This dog's now a celebrity, in my view. When you were on, I guess, MSNBC on the morning propaganda, tell us about the dog doing its civic duty.
Sure. Well, first of all, here's how gay I am. This is my wife. Yeah, well, Bebe goes with me everywhere. This is Bebe, who followed me home one day. I followed our other dog home. has been with me for over 5 years. But we were on Morning Joe, and Mika was holding him, and I guess he didn't like what she was saying, and he threw up on her on camera, and it was really funny. So we were back on yesterday, I believe. Yeah, yesterday. And he didn't throw up on her, but I brought a towel out and put it on her and made a thing out of it.
Well, introduce us to your wife.
I'm sorry?
Introduce us to the lovely, or is that your daughter?
No, that's my wife.
Thank you.
No, that's my beautiful wife. We've been together for 30, how many years?
You're the one that keeps
32 years. We met on March 3rd, 1981. We've been married 27 years, and we dream about each other, Alex. So I don't know if Chris Walken's going to be happy about that. But
hey, going back here briefly, does your lovely wife share your views on things?
some, just like any wife.
No, she holds my feet to the fire, asks really great questions, and she's my #1 loving critic, and doesn't let me get full of myself, and saved my life years ago because I was, one of those crazy guys from the 70s and 60s. But no, we've had a wonderful relationship. We've grown together. My wife is kind of a scholar on antiquity and ancient religions and the origins of thought, and she's a great gardener. Next time I'll take you on a tour of our place here in France, where the resistance fighters lived.
Oh, you're in France right now?
In southwest France, in a little village that will go unnamed. But you can come and visit.
I can tell you, my wife is so jealous right now. She grew up in France because her dad was a diplomat.
Well, you got to come over here.
What part of France?
We have two. Where in France?
What part of
Well,
France?
she lived in Paris. Yeah.
Well, you got to come over, man. I got 2 houses. You have privacy.
You're so nice. I guess I could. The Skype's working this good. Richard, it's great talking to you and seeing your wife. Congratulations on the book doing so well, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend.
Thanks for selling the book, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Well, there he goes. Richard Belzer, TV movie star, and with his wife and dogs there. Very, very, very interesting. Visit infowars.com and prisonplanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.